Following the controversy that trailed the introduction of the Infectious Disease Bill, which seeks to repeal the Quarantine Act, the House of Representatives had bowed to pressure and fixed the 10th and 11th days of June for public hearing on the bill. Joining us to discuss this and other issues trailing the Infectious Disease Act is Victoria Ibezim-Ohaeri, the founder and director of research and policy at Spaces for Change. It's a pleasure to have you on SaharaTV, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
To start with, what's your view on this bill? Do you think it is needed at this time? And why should Nigerians be concerned?
Yeah, there are so many reasons Nigerians should be concerned about that bill. But starting with the bill, the coronavirus pandemic has really caused a lot of upheaval across countries of the world, destabilizing both political, social, economic, and cultural systems, and prompting countries of the world to begin to look for how to contain the spread of the virus and infection, and also mitigate the impact of the infection on the affected populations. So that necessitated review of policies, laws, legal standards across the world to give states more powers to deal with the situation with the best resources and skills available to them. So I think Nigeria, joining other countries of the world, decided to Nigeria decided to introduce the legal framework to reposition and strengthen the National Disease Control Agency and other health-related departments to undertake the important task of preventing and managing the outbreak of infectious diseases. So in that extent, to the extent that it is necessary to look for solutions to increase the tempo of disease containment, that legal framework is necessary. But the document that has been put forward also raised a lot of concerns, and that is why Nigerians should get involved in this conversation.
Surprisingly, there are different versions of the bill, both at the Senate and the House of Representatives. What could be the reason for pushing this bill by our lawmakers?
What could be the reason for the push? I'm not aware there are different versions. Actually the version that has been circulated at the National Assembly, at the House of Reps, what they have is the Control of Infectious Diseases Bill, sponsored by Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, that is also the Speaker of the House of Representatives. But at the House of the Senate, there is a similar bill which is called the National Emergency Health Bill. So both bills seek to repeal the Quarantine Act. So maybe that is what people are calling, because the version that has been in circulation is the one that appears to be plagiarized from Singapore.
Okay, let me take you up on the issue of the fact this bill has been found to be plagiarized. And I mean, what does this connote of our lawmakers? I mean, why would a proposed act of a democratic country like Nigeria be plagiarized from existing laws of another country, considering the fact that those laws were actually coupled together under a military dictatorship? Why do we have to plagiarize with the retinue of brilliant and accomplished baristas in this country?
Yeah, I think that's one of the concerning questions that have been raised by stakeholders. The copy and pasting of solutions, particularly from contexts that are not similar to Nigeria, contexts that are different, both socially, economically, politically, and culturally from Nigeria. So it has implications when you just copy them and paste them into a local situation. It's going to cause major disruptions even in the health system that we are trying to improve. And that is why there's a lot of public disapproval about the bill. So I don't think Singapore is one of the best countries we need to copy from. And I think the tension is also arising because if you recall, the social media bill was also plagiarized from Singapore. So whatever it is that makes it easy to plagiarize Singaporean laws, I think Nigerians need to look into that.
Let us look at some of the contentious sections.
purpose of this, for this particular bill, Nigerians have said this is not the kind of.
Take you up on some of the contentious sections of the draft Infectious Disease Act, as a matter of fact, I mean, and get your perspective on them. For example, the Act actually contains 81 sections, 43 pages, as a matter of fact. Section 13, subsection 1 says, the Director General may order any person who is or is suspected to be a case or carrier or a contact of an infectious disease to be detained and isolated in a hospital or other places for such period of time, subject to such conditions as the Director General may determine. I mean, doesn't this leave room for gross violation of human rights and abuse of power?
Of course, there's enormous potential. The bill granted unparalleled powers to the Director General of National Disease Control for NCDC, National Center for Disease Control, to detain members of the public and minors indefinitely at even at a hospital or other undisclosed locations if they are suspected to be a case or carrier of infectious disease. That section 13 is very concerning. The power is extreme, is overly discretionary, subjecting individuals to indefinite detention without any clear justification and medical evidence demonstrate the presence of infectious diseases, even dangerous to public safety. More tellingly, I think the right to detain at undisclosed locations could be explored for ulterior motives where there are no checks and balances. So the absence of checks and balances on that provision is something that a lot of advocates, including Spaces for Change, we have raised in both our press statements and in our legal analysis, and also memorandum we're submitting to National Assembly, that section needs to be addressed. And apart from that, that's not just the only concerning provision. There is also section 20 that empowers the Director General of NCDC to stop any meeting or gathering that is likely to increase the spread of an infectious disease. So by just merely converging or congregating, there is nothing that suggests that such a gathering might increase the spread of an infectious disease. So it just depends on the discretion of the DG of NCDC. So with the absence of statutory safeguards to prevent the abuse of this power, there is a strong likelihood that overzealous estate agents will may use that opportunity to prescribe all sorts of meetings, including human rights meetings, accountability conferences, peaceful demonstrations even, you know, and in the like, in the name of disease prevention. Apart from that, that provision may also pave the way to clamp down on diverse associations and gatherings converging at various times and locations to campaign for social justice or to deliver other social goods. So these are some of provisions. Apart from that, there is also the section on section 55. That section 55 empowers also the DG of NCDC to compel any person to provide any book, documents, correspondence, or any information that they are requested from them. So if you look at that provision and compare it to section 37 of the Nigerian Constitution, compare that guarantees citizens' privacy and protection from the invasion of their homes, their correspondence, telephone, telegraphic communications, you will see there's a lot of inconsistency. There are also, what about press freedoms, where journalists need to sometimes protect the source of their information that they get. So that type of provision breaches data privacy, not just that confidentiality agreements, doctor-patient privacy is going to infringe on those kinds of protections, or that the compulsory vaccination of certain members of the public. Our problem with that section is that it is silent on the need for informed consent prior to any vaccination. And informed medical consent is a right guaranteed to every person. And another problem with that section is that the bill imposes no obligation on the NCDC to inform members of the public of any health risks that may follow compulsory vaccination. So there is no provision for legal responsibility for drug reaction or negative side effects, especially where informed consent was not sought or obtained. So this power to enforce compulsory vaccination without any clear establishment of public health vaccination is very concerning, and that is something that the Parliament should really look into.
All right, let me.
That's just about a few. There's hardly no provision of that or that doesn't have. I'm just summarizing just a few. There's so many. Some relating to post-mortem examinations on dead bodies. Some that also conflict with other existing laws like NAFDAC laws, primary health care laws, and too many other legal frameworks that need to be taken into account.
Let me also ask you this. I mean, for example, the Child Rights Act of 2003 includes provisions compelling immunization. While we're still talking about this vaccination aspect of that act, yet Nigeria has one of the highest infant mortality rates in the world. And compelling Nigerians to take vaccine, does it necessarily guarantee success, especially with the current social trend?
I didn't get the question.
There's certain aspects of the act itself.
Yes, I'm hearing you.
The director may be, by order, direct any person or a class of person not protected or vaccinated against that infectious disease to undergo other prophylaxis within such period as may be specified in the order. Like enforcing vaccination on Nigerians. The Child Rights Act, for example, includes provisions compelling immunization. Yet Nigeria is said to have one of the highest infant mortality rates in the world. Compelling Nigerians to take vaccine as enshrined in this act, does it guarantee success, especially with regards to current social trends?
Well, I wouldn't say it would, or to I'm not a medical expert, but I think the Child Rights Act provides guidance regarding issues of compulsory immunization of minors. And for minors, parental consent needs to be obtained.
Yeah.
So like I mentioned previously, the proposed bill is silent on the need for informed consent. It does not say anything about requirement for parental consent or parental participation in any. It only says that NDC, Director General of NDC has the power. So this is the Director General of NDC that will make the decision for parents. And that is where the conflict arises. I would want to draw your attention to the concerns we had about polio vaccine. That was in parts of northern Nigeria at the time, where certain parents, were resisting the vaccine on religious reasons. I think it took some sensitization campaigning and awareness creation to get a lot of parents to shift from their position. So it did not require force. I also want to mention that Nigeria has vaccine-preventable diseases. We used to have things like measles, smallpox, chickenpox, tetanus. You can see that many of those diseases are increasingly fading away. And they're not fading away because there was any Director General of NDC that was using force to immunize children. It was because parents' awareness creation increased, particularly in the rural areas, making parents to voluntarily submit their children for vaccination. And that's, quite frankly, the approach that needs to be taken. There needs a lot of sensitization and awareness creation that needs to happen so that parents can buy into this, but not just using force, the use of compulsion.
Now, considering the issues that that continue to swirl around this act itself, the bill itself has been tagged different names, claiming it has foreign backing. We can't claim this is verifiable. But Bill Gates, for example, was accused of bribing the House of Representatives with $10 million bribe for speedy passage of the compulsory vaccine bill. What's your reaction on this?
Well, I think I saw a notice on The Guardian, an errata notice on The Guardian trying to withdraw that allegation. I think it was made by CUPP.
Yeah.
So it remains an allegation until proven unsubstantiated by a court, or by either by their SATA or by a court of law. So to the best of my knowledge, there is no judicial pronouncements on that allegation. Those that are also made allegation have not tendered any sort of proof. So it's not something that we're paying attention to.
Finally, let me just get your perspective on this. Will you ask that the National Assembly drop the passage of this bill at this time? Or do you think the bill still needs major rework, stakeholder engagement from different sections of the country, please?
To be frank, if I were to advise, say that the sponsor of the bill, Distinguished Honorable Ibezim-Ohaeri, maybe needed to have withdrawn the bill, gone back to do some homework, then reintroduce the bill. That's probably one way to deal with a lot of the defects in the bill, because there's hardly any section of the bill that does not contain a provision that needs to be tinkered a bit with. For one, stakeholder engagement, because this is a bill that has implication across sectors, across cultures, religions, and also on the health system. And there are numerous legal frameworks, existing legislation have addressed various parts that the bill seeks to, cover. So there is need, first and foremost, for stakeholder engagement to understand the needs of the various sectors, and secondly, to see the extent to which the existing law have addressed some of the issues. For instance, if you look at the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention Establishment Act 2018, that law provides for reporting, detection, workforce development, preparedness, emergency responses, investigation, for disease outbreaks in compliance with requirements of international health regulations. So it's hard for us to see anything that this bill seeks to achieve that is not already covered by law, the NCDC Act of 2018. Then you also have to look at the NAFDAC Act. You also have to look at, there is this other law, the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency Act. So after assessment of all of these agencies, and at the end, only those gaps that exist, that is what this bill should come to respond to. So that type of assessment is really needed and inform the drafting of a brand and fresh bill that also complies with human rights standards, many of which Nigeria is a signatory to at international level.
Mrs. Victoria Ibezim-Ohaeri, thank you very much for your insightful analysis as far as this issue is concerned.